Ole Miss is the next Auburn Tigers or Alabama Crimson Tide that dominates SEC basketball.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Ole Miss Podcast, the most watched Ole Miss podcast around. I am your host, Steven Willis, a 10-year veteran member of the national media and a former Ole Miss staff member. Today's show, we talk about Ole Miss basketball and Chris Beard positioning the program to become the next SEC powerhouse following the paths of Auburn and Alabama. Chris Beard was the talk of the NCAA tournament for the way that Ole Miss played this season, and that was with a patchwork roster that wasn't even fully his. The Rebels have already proven that they compete at a Sweet 16 level. But what happens when Beard has that roster built entirely for his system? That is interesting. It is going to be electric. Remember, we're free and available on all the podcast apps and on YouTube. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen every day, and a special hello to the insiders and everydayers who make this show what it is. Don't forget to check out a second listen on the network. Chris Gordy at Locked On SEC or Corey Burton at Locked On Vandy offered even more perspectives on college football, the SEC, and all things Ole Miss. Check out Zach Blackerby at Locked On Auburn or Luke Robinson at Locked On Bama for more information. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. And the NCAA tournament felt like really an arrival time for Ole Miss basketball for what they could be. The Sweet 16 run equaled the best season that Ole Miss basketball has ever had. So it stands to reason that it would be surprising seeing Ole Miss make that run and playing so well throughout the tournament. Honestly, they were one ticky-tack foul call against Sean Padula, probably away from getting to the Elite Eight and playing Auburn. That is just the way it worked this year. This roster was not necessarily Chris Beard's chosen roster. Now, I'm not saying he has a problem with anybody on the roster. This was a very good Matthew Morrell, Sean Padula, Dre Davis. All those guys were handpicked for what needed to happen. But the reality of a Chris Beard system is that he's looking for more Dre Davises out there on the floor, people that can handle, people that can guard, people that are very long. When Dre Davis was very effective this season, Ole Miss was very effective. That kind of fits what Chris Beard does. Sean Padula, 6'1" point guard, very good player, excellent shooter, not as long as they would probably want on the outside. And Juju Murray was under 6 foot. So teams had the ability to kind of size-speed ratio Ole Miss from time to time against this team. This was a good team. It was a high-scoring team, excellent shooters all over the place that could hurt you, but it wasn't exactly the chosen team. So what is the chosen team? What is the checklist? What is the next step for Chris Beard to take that step into the Auburn, Alabama realm of rebuilding? He needs more size in the backcourt that makes that defense even more effective. If you can find some scores, yes, I realize that 6'3" point guards that can score, those guys don't grow on trees, but that's kind of the idea. And we'll talk in the next segment about a point guard that's a little bit closer to that at the time of the recording, there's a little bit of interesting contrast of whether or not he is actually committed out of the transfer portal. He's predicted to commit, and we have a tweet from Walker Jones with a check mark, but we haven't at the time of the recording got this. By the time you listen to this, he might already. But Ole Miss needs more size in the backcourt and a point guard that can run stuff in a similar way as Sean Padula, but adding a little bit more even, and Sean Padula is a very good defender on the defensive end. Chris Beard, I think, wants every player being between 6'3" and 6'10" on the floor so they can do the positionless hoops thing. And at 6'3", if you're long enough, you can kind of be a little bit more effective going against the down low, the post players. Florida and teams like that, Auburn, were able to high-low Ole Miss and get them into switches to where they could take advantage. Whenever you played the elite teams on the schedule, that shorter guard unit usually got exploited by a very good front court, and Ole Miss wasn't a very particularly good rebounding team. this season. I think that would help as well. And I think Ole Miss needs to find a Batman to avoid scoring slumps during games, rebounding and scoring slumps that cost them games in 2024. That's what needs to go away. And if Ole Miss gets rid of them, if Ole Miss gets rid of those slumps, they go from being a 24-12 team to a 29-6 team, to an Elite Eight team, a Final Four level team. If you look at what the SEC has become, Chris Beard has that on that trajectory. And Auburn recently went up that. Now, Bruce Pearl got there before the NIL and transfer portal era, so it took a little bit longer for him to build. But once the NIL and transfer era hit, their program went straight up like a rocket. And with Alabama and Nate Oates, he's doing great works through the transfer portal as well. They got Grant Nelson. He was a game changer for them down low. Transfers coming in have helped them out quite a bit as well. So Ole Miss has a chance to be the next version of those schools. And they do that, by Chris Beard getting the roster that he wants, and he is going to do that through the transfer portal, through recruiting, all of that, just like Lane Kiffin does in football. And what made him the portal king, I think Chris Beard is going to bring that as well. But he's also going to do it by, once he gets those guys playing the system, kind of chewing them up. What Ole Miss did in the NCAA tournament, I think, is kind of what Chris Beard wants to do on a nightly basis. Ole Miss just didn't quite have the roster to do it. The NCAA tournament this year was so much about matchups. So much about matchups going in. That was my thing for 3 weeks going into the NCAA tournament. How far Ole Miss went was going to be dependent on matchups. And in the tournament, this is how he got the team to buy into what he was doing. And if you can get the next team to buy in like this one, you can go really far, because there's going to be a size-speed ratio type deal that Chris Beard recruits. But they bought into the point where an elite top rebounding team in the entire country in Michigan State almost out-rebounded them. And in a season to where I've said multiple times that Ole Miss doesn't lose when they win the rebounding battle, they needed some little bit more physicality, a little bit more length to affect Michigan State shooters at the basket in that game. Once they had the dribble drive, they had the height advantage. Michigan State's guards made tough shots and won that game. I think Chris Beard is looking to add a little bit of physicality and defensive prowess in his backcourt and improve his rebounding as well. And it's kind of already started. Right now, Ole Miss has 2 people on campus. With 2 visitors already, roster construction is in full swing. A clear trend is emerging. We will break all of that down next. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out and online shopping and entertaining, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. You see, Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you don't even have to stop managing your money. You can start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized how much I was spending on food delivery, and now I budget smarter and I save a little bit more money. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's half off. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Imagine watching your favorite team live, feeling the energy of the crowd and witnessing unforgettable moments. There's nothing like experiencing a big game in person. Getting tickets shouldn't be stressful then, right? Well, that's where Game Time comes in, making it easier than ever to grab last-minute seats at unbeatable prices. Curation makes it easier to find better value for tickets to sports, concerts, comedy, and theater as well with Game Time picks. The lowest price guarantee or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference with a seat view before you buy, by the way. There's no surprise fees, and the lowest price guarantee, you can book with total confidence. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, for $20 off your first purchase. That's LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. So, just so everybody knows, thank you very much to David Holly. My surgery's coming up. Thank you for what you did. You didn't have to do it. It was way too much. Thank you for handling that as well. So, I had my brain tumor pre-op appointment, and the funny thing is, the tumor actually shrunk on the last MRI that I took, but we're still going to do the surgery. Didn't shrink much, but it shrunk a little bit. And I think it's funny that now the tumor decides like, whoa, we do not have to do the surgery, but we're going to do the surgery anyway. But I just thought that was kind of funny. And thanks to everybody that has reached out with prayers, well wishes, and all of that. We're going to do shows for a couple more weeks. We're going to take about 3 weeks to 6 weeks off because of recovering from that. And then we'll be back better than ever. If you're interested in that, in supporting this, the join subtext link down in the description, you click on that. It's $5 a month. I get 100% of the proceeds of that. If you're interested in doing something, it's not much, but it's something, and it would help, and it would allow you to do something if you so choose. And Brian Smith is going to be on board Monday, Wednesday, and Friday talking recruiting. He's the Florida football scout. We're going to have the host of Locked On SEC from time to time come in and do about a show a week. And you're going to have some evergreens from me about each SEC opponent that Ole Miss has during the fall. So stay tuned for that. And thank you for everybody. If there's anything you can do, if you want to do something, just watch every video that comes out on this channel. Listen to it. Tell a friend about it. Do whatever you can to get them there. That would help me out greatly. And it's a really simple thing. Subscribe if you would, comment if you would, on the podcast app, subscribe, comment, all of that stuff. So I appreciate it very much. And thank you for that. So Ole Miss has a couple of visitors on campus today. As we speak, Pop Isaacs from Texas Tech and Creighton is on campus. And I think Carter Welling. Well, I have to check the name in just a second, but I will bring it up in just a little bit. But Pop Isaacs is something that I think is interesting. This is from Jeff Goodman. He's Creighton junior point guard. Pop Isaacs is entering the transfer portal. His agency, PNW Sports Group, told Field of 68, Isaacs averaged 16.3 points per game, 4.8 rebounds a game, and 3.9 assists a game before shutting it down after 8 games to have surgery. He had 27 points in a win over Kansas in his final appearance of the season. He's already getting predictions as well. Ole Miss missed out on Pop Isaacs last year, and he ended up going to Creighton from Texas Tech. He was with Mark Adams at Texas Tech. Mark Adams is kind of famously the defensive coordinator for Ole Miss as it sits right now. Isaacs went to Creighton, ended up having to have the hip surgery coming down. Ole Miss is going to check him out and all of that. So if you look up and Pop Isaacs is committed, if that thing comes up from the time that I record this to the time you listen to it, that is why. That means that Pop Isaacs passed all the medical exams and all of that going through this. If you want to look at it, Walker Jones had this interesting tweet. It's a thing on a thing, his chin like a thinking man, red and blue, and a check mark. And Walker Jones usually does something like that when the Grove Collective signs a player. So like I said, we haven't gotten confirmation, but we've gotten pretty close to confirmation of what could happen. And Pop Isaacs is a really good player for potentially for Ole Miss. Like I said, he had 16.3 points per game last season, 4.8 rebounds. He's a hard-nosed defender. He's originally from Las Vegas, Nevada. 3.9 assists per game. He averaged 38.3 from three-point range. His percentage from three-point range, 86% from the line. He's been about an 85% free throw shooter his whole time in college. At Texas Tech, he averaged 15.8 points a game, 11.5 points a game. So it's gone up each and every year. This is somebody that if he stays healthy, and after what happened at Creighton with the hip situation, It is a legitimate question. And we saw how good the Creighton Blue Jays took on the Auburn Tigers, kind of sticking with them all the way to the end. That's a Final Four team. Pop Isaac should have been the starting point guard on that team, and he might have could have D'd up Denver Jones or Pettiford or Miles Kelly, those guys on the outside. So that is interesting of what's going on. But I expect him to commit relatively soon. Joe Tipton from On3 has already predicted a commitment. The national analyst for 24/7 basketball has predicted a commitment for Pop Isaacs. I think this is the replacement for Juju Murray in the lineup. I do not think this is a Sean Padula. I think this is a replacement for Juju Murray, and what you have is a point guard getting 3 inches taller. And you have a little bit more length on the outside. That's my opinion about that. But that wasn't it. There's another visitor on campus as well. This is from Ben Garrett at the Ole Miss Spirit. Utah Valley forward Carter Welling is visiting as well. Carter Welling, really good player, WAC second team player of the year. 6'10", averaged 13.1 points, 6.3 rebounds, 1.4 assists, and shot nearly 50%. He's 6'10", 225 pounds as well. His last game in the WAC conference tournament was against San Francisco. He had 20 points and 11 rebounds in 27 minutes in that game. This is a guy that shot 35% from three-point range. He can do a little bit of everything, and he's a very versatile player from the outside at 6'10", kind of provides a little bit of the same thing that Malik Dia does. And we don't know if Malik Dia is going to the NBA or going to the Europe or coming back. I've heard rumors. He had a very emotional thing on after the Sweet 16, but obviously emotions are kind of ruling there as well. Some interesting stuff and some interesting names that right now there's a little smoke, but not much smoke about what was going on. I think Ole Miss is in a very good shape for – where did he go? Okay. Yaxel Lindelberg. I just had to find the tweet real quick about that. Yaxel Lindenberg from UAB. He's heard from every big name school in the country. This is going to be a war. And the reason it's going to be a war is this 6'9" senior averaged 17.7 points and 11.4 rebounds for Andy Kennedy's UAB team. Really interesting stuff there. And there's another tweet that Sean Padula quote tweeted. He's apparently a good friend with John Camden, who played for Delaware. He was the all-CAA second team, averaged 17.1 points a game, and averaged shooting 43% from three-point shot as well. What you can see is Chris Beard potentially recruiting a roster that's kind of in that 6'10" to 6'3" range. Guys that are a little bit long. A lot of times there's some defensive stalwarts on the field as well. And if he gets that done, this Ole Miss team becomes a different animal. It becomes a much tougher team to deal with. They can look like, honestly, what Tennessee has been able to look like from time to time, except having a little bit more height. There's no Sky Ziegler out there. You can actually post up. You can actually have a 6'3" guy that is covering him up as well. So we will keep an eye on that recruitment and what can happen. Like I said, Pop Isaac is honestly really close to popping if we're going to be real about it. And Carter Welling, we'll see what happens there. But Ole Miss is on transfer portal recruiting as we speak as well. Before we get out of here, I do want to point out Coach Yo is doing some work right now in the transfer portal. Ole Miss got 3 transfer portal commitments yesterday. Virginia's Latasha Lattimore, UCF's Caitlin Peterson, and Wichita State's Jayla Murray committed to Coach Yo's team. And these are some very, very high-level prospects that are coming in potentially to Coach Yo's Sweet 16 level class that she had and coming in. Like I said, there's no Madison Scott, but there's a lot that can happen and a lot of people that want to take advantage of what's going on with Coach Yo. So between Coach Yo and Coach Beard, the Pavilion has a chance to really be rocking for Ole Miss in 2025. So honestly, get your season tickets now if you're interested in that. If you want to watch on TV, that's great as well. Best seat in the house, but it has a chance to be really cool for Ole Miss indeed. So, our final segment, Caleb Odom is turning heads this spring with honestly how he looks in the uniform, but can he deliver on the field? Plus, we have the latest on the running game. We break it all down next. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're into plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job right the first time. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. You need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros out there looking for that little extra edge, their Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like dedicated phone lines, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it is your turn. Join Trade Master today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use the promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
So, talking a little football and moving on to spring practice. I know we've been inundated with the basketball run over the last couple of weeks, but spring practice has been going on. And spring practice, the way it sits, that you don't really learn too much from it. The way it's set up right now, and it's designed not to make you learn from it. So what you look at in spring practice is one-on-ones and how people looks and who Ole Miss is basically pointing out and highlighting over the course of spring. Those questions usually answer a lot. Whether it's finding out that Harrison Wallace prefers to be called Harrison over Trey, even though they was called Trey leading up all through the transfer portal. Whether it was Caleb Odom looking like, I don't know, a jewel in a uniform, very DK Metcalf-like on the outside. Ole Miss choosing to point him out, and that makes sense, honestly, because if I was Ole Miss, he would be first off the bus to begin with. But as it sits right now, Caleb Odom has the potential, him and Harrison Wallace, and Ole Miss's wide receiver group, they're fighting for potentially that second wide receiver, because I think Deshaun Stribling is going to be the one on the outside. I think Caleb Odom or Caden Lee is going to be the slot receiver. So the competition is pretty much going to be for that number 2 wide receiver. And that begs the question, what Ole Miss wants to get out of that position, because we talked to Austin Simmons and asked him for breakdowns on each of the wide receivers. He talked about Harrison Wallace. He talked about him being a really fast wide receiver. He could be a game breaker on the outside. So is that what Ole Miss is looking for? Austin Simmons compared him favorably with a Dayton Wade. Or is Ole Miss looking to get bigger? I've seen some very interesting stuff online. And again, it could mean nothing. A lot of tighter formations, a lot of playing around with what they're doing. Potentially, could you see a Caleb Odom, a Luke Haas, a Daquan Wright on the field at the same time for Ole Miss football in the fall with a Deshaun Stribling, and you have a lineup that should be able to open holes against dang near everybody? I want to know if that happens. All of the ability in the world, Caleb Odom, he's basically DK Metcalf, Evan Ingram. He is that jumbo wide receiver, that spread tight end. He's kind of in between there. And if he can find a home and find a role, he has a chance to be a receiver that Ole Miss hasn't seen in about a decade. He looks amazing. Everybody took pictures of him in uniform whenever they had their open practice last week. And they saw that as like, this guy looks amazing. This guy looks fantastic. And you saw the back shoulder fade and you saw all of the gifts on display. But it's going to come down in this system, the way it goes with Caleb Odom. Who picks up the offense first? The nuances of the offense. I'm not just talking about, hey, I need to run a 7 route on this play. You can figure out that. I'm talking about, hey, the safety's coming down, so the 7 becomes a 9, or they're playing back, so I'm supposed to do a 5 route, something like that. That is the nuances that's going to determine who is the number 2 wide receiver on this roster. Austin Simmons, obviously, he has a slingshot for an arm. You've heard me talk with the Florida football scout nearly every week talking about what he could do. And Ole Miss recruiting potentially a dream class, a super team in recruiting for 2026. This season's an important year to really go off to where a 5-star needs to make plays. Ole Miss needs to find players that they recruited in high school to make plays for players like Deuce Geralds and all that coming in. If you can do that, and Caleb Odom is a prime candidate for that to happen, that's something to keep an eye on. And before we get out of here, let's talk about the running game just a little bit. Logan Diggs and Kewan Lacy, they seem to be taking the lion's share of the reps. And Kewan Lacy is starting to be the guy that Ole Miss's football's Twitter account figures out how to take the clip of that video and put it out there, whether he's breaking tackles or breaking long runs or catching passes. Kewan Lacy is in a position to be an extra special running back. My theory is at Lancaster High School and then going to Missouri, one reason that he wasn't able to get on the football field immediately was because of pass protection. That's my guess, because that's usually the thing that gets highly touted prospects. It's not running ability. Lots of players have excellent running ability. It is that pass blocking ability that will keep you off the field nearly every single time. And Lacy, if he can wrap that up, getting that ready for Austin Simmons and the Ole Miss Rebels in 2025, this is a guy that could go from a third thought going into this transfer portal and recruiting season to being the starter in 2025. Lane Kiffin said that this running back had elite potential. Not good potential, not great potential. He doesn't talk about running backs and just throw that word around. He talked about him having elite potential. But Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin and Charlie Weiss Jr. and Kevin Smith, all of those guys have got to figure out how to unlock that potential. If they can do that, you could see Kewan Lacy make a splash for Ole Miss this season. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your go-to source for Ole Miss sports. We pride ourselves on offering the most comprehensive perspectives, which is why we're the number 1 Ole Miss podcast out there. Your support means the world to us. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On College Basketball with Isaac Shade and Andy Patton. March is here, so be the most informed college basketball fan throughout the madness. Find Locked On Ole Miss or Locked On College Basketball on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Hotty toddy, everyone, and remember, analytics is just the old English word that means bad football. We'll see you tomorrow.